Welcome in Dakar. This is the most expensive painting to ever be sold at auction for $450 million. Oops, sorry, wrong Da Vinci painting. That's better. It was actually Solito Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci that sold for $450 million in 2017. This is the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, and if it went up for auction now, it would likely sell for far more than her orb-clutching counterpart. She's rich. She's famous. She's also apparently a bit of a disappointment. 8 million people go to the Louvre every year just to see the Mona Lisa, but once they arrive, they only spend about 15 seconds actually looking at her. But how is this possible? Is the Mona Lisa not worth the hype? Let's go back to the beginning, shall we? It's 1503. Leonardo da Vinci has just returned to Florence after a 2-year stay in Cesena. Shortly after his arrival, he is approached by a wealthy silk merchant named Francesco del Giocondo to paint a portrait of his 24-year-old wife, Lisa. What started off as a run-of-the-mill portrait turned into Leonardo da Vinci's magnum opus, a masterpiece the artist would continue working on until his death, a painting he would never part with. The feature he tinkered with the most? Her smile. Lisa sits in an armchair, her body turns to the side, her head faces in our direction, and she stares directly at us, which was quite provocative at the time. It wasn't unusual for wealthy women to pose for portraits, but they always pose passively, always looking away. But not the Mona Lisa. She's comfortable and confident, and maybe even smiling a bit. I think. She wears a silk gown with ornate gold detailing around her neckline. A garment, possibly a scarf, cascades down her left shoulder. A thin, translucent veil frames her loose curls. Her dress is elegant, simple, so as not to distract from her face. Her left arm sits on the armrest, fingers dangling gently off the end. Her right arm wraps around her left wrist. She's surrounded by a beautiful Tuscan landscape, likely inspired by the real world, but ultimately a figment of Leonardo's imagination. Over her right shoulder, there's a winding path leading to a body of water. Over her left shoulder, a bridge extends over a narrow waterway that appears to flow into a larger body of water. Hold on. Something's not right here. Don't get me wrong. The background is magical and stunning, but do you notice how the two sides of the horizon don't line up? It's crooked. But how could Leonardo da Vinci make such a glaring mistake? He must not be the artistic genius everyone thinks he is, right? Wrong. Here's the kicker. The conflicting horizons were all part of Leonardo's plan to create a sneaky optical trick. Because when our brain receives conflicting visual information, in this case, 2 different horizon lines, it jumps between the 2 images, trying to figure out which one is correct. But when it comes to the background of the Mona Lisa, our brains can't figure out the right answer because, well, there are 2 right answers. So our brain oscillates back and forth between them. This constant reevaluation tricks us into thinking we're seeing the Mona Lisa from different angles, creating the illusion that she's moving. Trippy. Huh? Leonardo invented a technique called sfumato, in Italian. Sfumato means smoky, and it's a blending of tones in a painting so that there's no distinct outline. He used this technique to depict the atmospheric haze blurring the jagged mountainous structures in the distance, and also around her eyes and lips, which is another reason she's so lifelike. If you've existed on planet Earth for more than a few years, you've probably seen this face more times than you can count. She's literally everywhere. And maybe one of those billion times you looked into her eyes, you thought, who gives a rip? Or maybe you just don't understand why she looks like she's submerged in old asparagus water. So why is this the most famous painting in the world? Maybe it's because she has no eyelashes or eyebrows. No, this can't be why. Because she actually did used to have them, but they faded with time due to overcleaning. Giorgio Vasari even wrote about them in his 1550 book, saying that the eyes had a luster and moistness which are always seen in the living creature, and around them were the lashes and all those rosy and pearly tints that demand the greatest delicacy of execution. The eyebrows, through his having shown the manner in which the hair sprang from the flesh, here more close, and here more scanty and curved according to the pores of the flesh, could not be more natural. This is a copy of the Mona Lisa, likely made by one of Leonardo's art students in 1503. It gives a more accurate depiction of what Lisa actually looked like, and also shows how much brighter the colors would have been when she was created in the beginning of the 16th century. So if you're wondering, no, Leonardo didn't just like painting in sepia tone. The yellowish-brown hue was actually caused by a yellowing of the varnish covering the painting, which could be fixed with a good restoration, but will likely never happen for fear of damaging the painting. A big reason why the Mona Lisa is so famous is because it was created by one of the greatest minds that ever lived. Although Leonardo da Vinci is now primarily known as a master painter, he likely thought of himself more as a scientist, and during his life, he made a majority of his money performing as a musician. We can see many of his intellectual pursuits in his notebook entries, where he sketched and wrote extensively about physics, engineering, and science. If we pass the page where he invented the parachute, or the page where he invented the helicopter, or the armored car, or the slew of other inventions he conceived of long before the rest of the world, there's a page mapping out different lip expressions, and at the tippy top of this page is a sketch of something you might recognize, that famous, elusive smile. She's smiling. And then she's not. How is this even possible? Neurophysiologist Dr. Margaret Livingston realized that the secret behind the Mona Lisa's ever-changing grin has to do with how our eyes function. When we look directly at something, in this case, straight into the eyes of the Mona Lisa, we're able to see her eyes very clearly, while the object around them appear blurry to us. This is because these surrounding objects, in this case, her mouth, are in our peripheral vision. According to Livingston, our central vision, or the vision we use when we look directly at something, is very good at seeing detail, while our peripheral vision can recognize shadow but not detail. Leonardo strategically painted the shadows around Mona Lisa's mouth so that when we look into her eyes, she's grinning from ear to ear. But when we look at her mouth, she's, at best, smirking. Amazing. In 1516, Leonardo da Vinci accepted a position working for King Francis I and moved to France with the Mona Lisa in tow. When Leonardo died in 1519, King Francis I acquired the painting, and it became part of the royal collection. The masterpiece started to gain admirers shortly after Leonardo's death. Giorgio Vasari described the Mona Lisa in passionate detail in his 1550 book The Lives of the Most Excellent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects. He writes, "The nose, with its beautiful nostrils rosy and tender, appeared to be alive. The mouth, with its opening and its ends united by the red of the lips to the flesh tints of the face, seemed in truth to be not colors but flesh. In the pit of the throat, if one gazes upon it intently, could be seen the beating of a pulse. And indeed, it may be said that it was painted in such a manner as to make every brave artificer, be who he may, tremble and lose courage. And in this work of Leonardo, there was a smile so pleasing that it was a thing more divine than human to behold, and it was held to be something marvelous in that it was not other than alive." But Vasari wasn't the only one enamored with the Mona Lisa. French military leader Napoleon Bonaparte even insisted on hanging it in his bedroom before it was sent to be displayed at the Louvre in Paris in 1804. The Mona Lisa lived a cushy life at the Louvre for over 100 years until the early morning of August 11th, 1911, when she was stolen. Really, though, the Mona Lisa was stolen. Even worse, it took over 24 hours before anyone noticed she was even gone. Once the theft was reported, the Louvre shut its doors to the public, and the world was instantly fascinated by the heist. It became a national scandal seemingly overnight. Once the museum opened its doors again, thousands came just to see the bare spot on the wall where the painting once hung. I wonder if they looked for more than 15 seconds. Newspapers across the globe wrote about the missing masterpiece. The Mona Lisa was well known before the theft, but evidently not as famous as she is today, given that the Washington Post accidentally used the wrong portrait in their story. The investigation into who stole the Mona Lisa brought a few promising leads, including famous artist Pablo Picasso, but everyone was cleared. The Mona Lisa had been missing for 2 years when an art dealer in Florence received a strange call from a man named Vincenzo Peruggia. He stated that he possessed a stolen painting and was interested in selling it. The art dealer hesitantly agreed to meet Peruggia, and once he realized he had the real Mona Lisa, he contacted the police, and Peruggia was arrested. Vincenzo worked as a staff member of the Louvre making protective cases for paintings, which explains somewhat how he was able to swipe the Mona Lisa without getting caught. But why did he do it? Vincenzo Peruggia was an Italian nationalist who believed Napoleon Bonaparte had stolen the Mona Lisa from Italy. Although this was untrue, it wasn't that strange of an assumption to make, since Napoleon stole a lot of things, and art was no exception. In Peruggia's mind, he was simply returning the Mona Lisa to her rightful home in Italy. He was arrested and served 12.5 months in prison. Leonardo never delivered the Mona Lisa to the Giocondo family, maybe because he altered the painting so much over the years that it didn't even really look like Lisa anymore. Some scholars even question whether Lisa del Giocondo was a subject at all, saying it might be a portrait of Leonardo da Vinci himself, or maybe a model of Leonardo's ally, also believed to be the artist's lover. Sigmund Freud even speculated it could be depicting Leonardo's mother. Leonardo da Vinci was an absolute genius, and the more I learned about him, the more I'm convinced he might have been an alien. And, well, maybe he was. No, I'm just kidding. This isn't that kind of video. I love this painting because of the way Leonardo was able to inject his own spirit of obsessive wonder into it. Who is she? Where is she? Why is she always looking at me? Is she smiling? Nope. In the current world where art and science are often seen as mutually exclusive, all we have to do is look at the Mona Lisa to know that the best art is really just beautiful science. It's said that Leonardo da Vinci took 16 years to create this painting, but in reality, it took an entire lifetime of intense engineering, mathematical, scientific, anatomical, and artistic research to create the greatest of all his inventions, the Mona Lisa. Have we all been tricked into thinking she's the best painting ever? I think so, because of the story of her theft that captivated the world and made her a national treasure. Because of Leonardo's innovative optical tricks that made her look so real, so familiar, so mysterious. Vincenzo Peruggia has largely been forgotten over time, but the Mona Lisa has only become more famous. And if it wasn't for him, the Mona Lisa may not have risen to fame as dramatically as she did. Maybe it was all part of her master plan. As Walter Pater writes in his book, "Hers is a head upon which all the ends of the world are to come. She is older than the rocks among which she sits. Like a vampire, she has been dead many times and learned the secrets of the grave." And this quote is from a book written in 1850, proving that the Mona Lisa was capturing hearts and minds long before the theft. Art critic Théophile Gautier wrote in 1859 that the Mona Lisa is a sphinx of beauty who smiles so mysteriously. Beneath the forms expressed, one feels a thought that is vague, infinite, inexpressible. One is moved, troubled, repressed desires, hopes that drive one to despair stir painfully. Gautier was clearly projecting his own thoughts and feelings onto the painting, but I think this perfectly illustrates the Mona Lisa's superpower, because she's anyone you want her to be, thinking whatever you want her to think. If there were an alternate reality where the Mona Lisa was never stolen, I believe she would still be famous, though maybe a little less mass-produced. Although, I have to admit, there's something to the saying, you never know what you have until it's gone. Thank you for watching Dark Core.